Hello, class, and welcome to Organizational Communication for the summer session 2 of 2017. My name is Dr. Daryl Farmer. You're watching the first introductory lesson, which is going to cover the syllabus and very little else. Hopefully, I'll be able to give you an overview of what is important in the classroom and how you're going to try to interact with your classmates. I am going to be available in the office, but that's probably unimportant to you. What you'll be able to do is reach me by email. My email is listed here. It's farmerd@hsu.edu. Usually, if you give me a 24-hour turnaround time, I'll be able to respond to you. Whenever we're dealing in an electronic format like this one, that's probably going to be the easiest way for us to communicate and the most steadfast way for our interaction to take place. I move on to the required materials. We'll be using reframing organizations in the 4th edition. It's important that you get the Bowman and Deal text in the 4th edition because they've edited it some, and there's a 5th edition that I don't really care for, and the 1st through 3rd edition is missing some of the material that's covered. So it's important to get the 4th edition. The HSU bookstore has a supply of these, as well as there are copies on Amazon for I think $30 and under. So the nice thing about this textbook, I think it covers the material really well that I want to be able to highlight, and also it's not the most expensive book that you're going to be able to find for organizational communication. So I think it meets that center point of both price and consideration for the quality of the text. The material that follows on the page is mostly cut and pasted from the HSU website. What I think is probably the important thing for you to recognize is what we're looking for you to be able to do. In a perfect world, what you'll leave this class with is a better understanding of how organizations function, the way that they relate into your life, the way to understand an organization as not just a business or a company, but also as a group or a gathering. I'm hoping that you leave with some ability to understand how organizations not only behave, but why certain management techniques and strategies will fulfill certain objectives, and how they can motivate behavior within and outside of an organization in both reaction to and hopefully in a proactive stance. You'll be able to use varied organizational visions to better pursue a job in any field. Now, this course not only counts for a communication studies degree, but it also is a general requirement for many other degrees. So what I try to do is leave the assignments open-ended enough so that they're not specialized to the communication studies field, and that you'll be able to orientate them on the basis of what suits you best and what you think is going to benefit you the most looking for a job and going forward. In terms of a teaching philosophy, I really do try to be as collaborative and interactive as possible. In an electronic forum like this, it's always interesting to try to navigate the hardships that come along with that. I think that you're going to be presenting your opinions whenever you're dealing with reflection papers and response papers that we'll get to later. And ultimately, we're going to not only interact you and I, but interact amongst each other as a cohort for this class. You'll be able to do a lot of the material, hopefully at a pace that's comfortable for you, but I am available for you. The number one thing that I think I can stress to you is if you contact me ahead of time, there's virtually no problem that we won't be able to resolve. Whether it comes to a due date or whether it comes to material being difficult or needing to be further explained or needing extra help on an assignment, I'll be able to work with you insofar as you reach out to me beforehand. Where you'll find that my philosophy meets trouble is if your behavior is to try to contact me after the fact or to let a situation linger and fester and then look for me to help you kind of put out a fire. I'm much more into preventative measures than I am for taking care of something after a problem has already metastasized. So, a course policy. There's not going to be attendance or participation in terms of raise your hand, call on, lecture style. Obviously, that interaction, sadly, from the electronic medium that we have is not going to be available. So how do I grade this, or how does this matter? Your participation is going to be weighed and measured by the amount and type and value that's attributed to your response papers that I'll go over in the assignment section proper to hopefully highlight what I'm talking about. But to give you the quick version, every chapter you're going to tell me what you thought was important about it. You're going to share with me the value. You're going to talk to me for about a page about what you thought was the takeaway point from any given chapter that you read. And then you're also going to read people's responses for each chapter, and you're going to respond directly to them. Do you agree with them? Do you disagree? That sort of thing. But that's how we're going to measure attendance for this class and the way that it will work. Your assignment due dates, I don't really have a lot of wiggle room on this. The way that the Blackboard mechanics work, it will be up for a certain period of time, and if you miss the assigned due dates, then after that point you won't even be able to submit either the response papers, the tests, or any of the material that will be graded in class. So I guess in highlighting what's really important is, I told you with my teaching philosophy, make sure you warn me ahead of time. If you think that you're going to have trouble with a particular assignment, or you find out that something, hopefully not, but something catastrophic happens in your life and you need me to be able to be responsive to that, I will be. But what I want you to understand is I know most of you carry around cellular devices that make you connected to the internet at all times, and you can always shoot me off an email that lets me know a problem before it really becomes a real problem. So if something comes up, I don't expect to be the first person that you call, but before you've missed a deadline for several days and then need help, go ahead and let me know that something has come up that's probably going to make it problematic for you to meet a particular deadline. Assuming that nobody has any tragedies befall them and isn't in need of any extra help, the assignment due dates are clearly posted later in the syllabus, and this syllabus is made available to you on Blackboard, so you'll have access to it for the entirety of the class. Professional courtesy would normally be where I talk to you about presentations and speeches. We aren't going to be doing any of those in this format, so instead what it is when I ask you to do responses and reflection parts to respond to other classmates, you want to be respectful to them, present yourself in a professional manner, and make sure that what you're saying to your classmates is something that is both meaningful in terms of the text itself, so that the response paper is academic by its nature, but also courteous, kind, and I'll encourage you to disagree, but I'll encourage you to disagree in a tasteful way and in a manner that is reflective of scholarly and academic behavior. Whenever it comes to cheating and plagiarism, I'll just tell you right off the bat, I'm going to come down hard on anybody that I think is cheating. This means that although this is a list that's not exhaustive, it can include but not limited to using your book whenever it's not an open book test. It can include turning in somebody else's work as your own. It can include not correctly sourcing material. Now, those things go in order of importance, and by the end, I can be a little bit more lenient if you're clearly trying to cite material, but you're just not doing it properly. That's a lot different than trying to pass it off as your own work. So I think academic dishonesty is really important in all walks of life, but it's particularly important whenever you're seeking a degree, because if I don't come down hard on people who are cheating, then everybody who is working hard to attain that degree has no better opportunity than somebody who cheated their way to it, and I just can't see in terms of ethics that being acceptable. So in short form, rather than all the words I've just thrown at you and everything that I have written here, don't cheat, don't plagiarize, don't do the things you know you're not supposed to do in class. If you have any questions about what constitutes plagiarism, or you want to have that discourse, I'm open to it, and if you want to email me, I'll try to explain as clearly and litigiously as possible what constitutes plagiarism. If you have any special circumstances, first I highly recommend that you visit the Disability Resource Center. They work really well here at Henderson, and they will make sure that you are cleared for all that can possibly help you in working with the disability and making class easier for you. If you go to them and they give you a printout sheet, you might need extra time on tests. You might need me to read the tests out loud in a format like this one so that you can listen. I am reflective to whatever it is that you need. Just let me know and we'll be able to work on that. So the sooner the better in terms of being able to find out what I can do to be able to make your life easier for class. Here's the part that everybody wants to hear about. What are you going to be graded over? What are the assignments? So you're going to have 3 major points that you're going to work with in this class. It's going to be tests. There's going to be 4 tests that are 100 points each. That means they're going to be 50 multiple choice true-false questions that are 2 points each. And you're going to find out that everything that I ask you comes from the chapters and the lectures. There's not going to be any curveballs. There's not going to be any short answer or essays. If you're reading the material, if you're listening to the lectures and you're doing your due diligence to interact with that material, I don't think you're going to find any of these tests to be extremely difficult. The discussion posts are what I've talked about here. You're to give a response of 2 pages, double-spaced in length for each chapter that you read. In addition, you're going to be required to read 2 of the response papers of a different student and respond in 1 page. That means that for every chapter that you read, you're going to write a total of 4 double-spaced pages. Those double-spaced pages are going to be attributed in this way so that I can grade different sections. Whenever I get to the schedule broken down a little bit later, you'll see the due dates for each of these. So there'll be one set of due dates related to your own response paper that's 2 pages, and then there'll be a second date that's obviously later so that you have some time to reflect on, to read other people's responses and post your own response to your fellow students. This is going to simulate discourse in this digital format. I'm hoping that you're going to be able to find not only the material engaging and this to be easy for you, but also that you don't just become repetitive. It's time for you to be able to test ideas, to get to know fellow students, and for you to be able to write in hopefully a meaningful way something out of each chapter that you thought was thought-provoking. We do 1 paper for this course. It's an organizational paper. I have an entire lecture dedicated to it, so you'll get a rubric that identifies every point that's possible on the paper. I'll explain to you what I'm looking for, and I think it's not only straightforward in terms of the way that the paper is provided to you, but in addition to that, hopefully it will be something that once you've worked on, you'll realize helps you going forward to crystallize what's important while you're job hunting, while you're working within an organization, while you're seeking to improve your own placement within organizations. So when we talk about grading in this class, Henderson does not allow me to give you a plus or minus, so all of the grades are in 10-point increments. 90 is an A, 80 and above, 290 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, and so on and so forth. Once you hit that 59 threshold and under, it's an F, and that's what we're all trying to avoid. So how did the points break down? This is the way that they look. 4 tests at 100 points a pop equals 400. The discussion posts are broken down into the 16 chapters that we cover. That will be the 2 pages. That'll be 5 points for each page, and that equals 160 different points. Here you have 28 different discussion replies at 5 points each, which end up being 1 page in length each, and that's for 140 points. You might say to yourself, why is there 28? Because 2 times 16 would have been 32. We'll get to that in the specific schedule, but the last week you will not be able to do replies. You will only be able to do discussion responses. Why is that important? Because we simply can't fit it in before the final day of the class. And so we went ahead and cut that, and these points make sense to reach the 800 milestone. Your organizational paper is worth 1 test's worth of grade, so it's worth 100 points to get us to a total of 800 points total. Why I want to emphasize this now is because people in the past have done really well on certain things, not so great on other things, and they've been a little disappointed with their grades. Don't get behind on these points that are available to you. They're incredibly important for you to do the chapter responses and the discussions as quickly as possible and as thoroughly as possible, because since that represents such a large point total, they can make or break your grade. If you have any questions about either, please don't hesitate to email me. Here is what the schedule looks like. So when we're talking about each week, we're talking about units. I've broken them down into 5 different units. Each unit has a series of chapters that you read. You'll become more comfortable with these, hopefully, as we continue going forward. You'll have tests at different intervals. The first test is going to be over 5 chapters, and then from that point forward, they're each over 3 chapters. The book is broken down to have 2 introductory chapters, 1 and 2, and then 3 through 5, and so on, in 3 chapter increments. Represents one of the frames of analysis for organizational communication. Since there are 5 different frames covered in the book, you're going to be able to have all of those represented with a different subject matter in a unit. So in this case, what you're going to do is you'll see all of your due dates. Your response papers are due for the following 1 through 4 chapters by July 7th. And then you're going to have reply posts, which are the 1-page replies to other students' response posts, on July 9th. This is why you have reciprocity, or why you have some kind of community expectation. Everybody really needs to meet the deadlines for the response post, because other students are waiting on you to post those replies. In a world in which everyone was late to the response post, well, that shaves down the amount of time that students are going to have for replies. So make sure that you're posting these as quickly as you possibly can as you're reading the chapters, hopefully at a pace that's comfortable for you to understand the subject matter, but is going to be brisk because it's a summer course. You see at Unit 2, we start having tests every week from this point forward, so we get to the 4 tests. You see that you have response papers that are due by Friday. You're going to see consistency. Friday of every week is when the response papers are due. Sunday of every week was when reply papers are due. And I try to leave the tests each week up from Wednesday to Friday as a window. You get 1 opportunity to take the test. I'm going to have it timed so that you have an adequate amount of time, but not so much time that you could either thumb through the book to find the answers, or that you're going to be spending an exhaustive amount of time with each individual question. It will be a brisk pace, but it's not intended to trip you up, so don't be worried about the time interval. It's just a check on cheating and a check on abuse of the system. But each one of those, as you see, will have a window open from Wednesday to Friday to be able to cover. I know that not everybody will be available on the same days, so that 3-day window will let you personalize the course in terms of when you want to take your test. As long as you hit within that range for each one of those tests, you're going to be A-okay. The other thing that I want you to recognize is the organizational paper will be covered in much greater detail, as I say, with its own lecture, but that's going to be due on Wednesday, July 26th, and it's going to be due to me by 5 p.m. as an attachment on email. That paper is 100 points of your grade, and so you want to make sure that you do your due diligence on that. I'm going to give you as many weeks as possible to work on that so that you can fine-tune it as you see fit. Once we get to Unit 5 and the 4th test, you'll recognize that because we end on August 4th, there's no reply post due for this unit. So each one of these deadlines are still posted in the same way that they were. This is Thursday instead of Friday like all of the others, simply because that is the last day of class. If you have any questions, I want you to not hesitate to email me about them. I look forward to an eventful and fun summer. Ultimately, this class, even if it seems daunting as I'm explaining the syllabus, I don't think is. And I've at least received perfunctory reports from the one class that I've had that's done this in this electronic format, that they're satisfied with the way that things work. They feel like they learned a lot. So I'm looking forward to your feedback at the end of the session to let me know how things went. And if you have any questions throughout, just let me know. Thanks. Take care.